Okay, so we are back for part 2 of our video on courage. So if you remember, in the first video, we learned about what courage was. It comes from that word in French, cœur. So it comes from our heart, and it's when our heart is telling us there's something that we need to do, something positive, and we need to do it. We need to do it even though we may feel fear and embarrassment. So it's the willingness to act for something positive, even though we may feel afraid or embarrassed or uncertain of the outcome. And it's difficult. It's not easy to act courageous. So this next segment, we're going to learn about examples of courage, like what courage looks like. So when we hear the word courage, a lot of the times we think of these massive, extraordinary acts of courage, like the people that keep us safe, that will put their lives on the line, like firefighters and soldiers and things like this. And we also think about people who really stood up and risked their life or risked imprisonment because they knew what was right. They knew they had to stand up and say, hey, the world isn't how it's supposed to be. It needs to change. People like Martin Luther King Jr., right, stood up and got the world to listen that things in America were not equal. They're still not today. We're still trying to live out his message, his dream. And so people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks and all these others, like Viola Desmond, like we need to learn from them, and we can. But those extraordinary acts of courage can be really hard, and that's okay. But there's also ordinary acts of courage, these ordinary things of courage that happen every day that sometimes we don't really stop and think about how courageous that is. Like how, even though someone might be embarrassed or someone isn't certain about what could happen and it could be scary, they still do it because they know what's right. Things like being kind and being kind to everyone. It's not easy, and you don't know how people react. If you're kind to certain people, if you're kind to people who are mean to you, right, that takes courage because you're uncertain. You don't know how they may respond. And maybe your peers will look at you and be like, why are you being nice to that person? And so that's this uncertainty of how people will react to your kindness. So it can be courageous. It is courageous to still be kind, okay, to everyone, regardless of who they are. What about admitting you're wrong? Is this easy to admit when you make a mistake? But remember, mistakes are human. Like to err is human, right? Like we as humans, we make mistakes and that's okay. It's important that we remember that, right? Like everyone makes mistakes. Doctors make mistakes. Our parents sometimes make mistakes. Our teachers sometimes make mistakes. I make mistakes. I will sometimes say the wrong word or flip sentences around. It happens, right? And so it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are forgivable. But you have to have that courage to admit them, to own up to them, to be like, oh, mea culpa, my bad, I messed up, I made a mistake, right? Sometimes we need to apologize for those mistakes, or sometimes we just learn from them and we move forward. But it definitely takes courage to stand up, to admit you're wrong, to move forward. Also takes courage to be honest to yourself and to everyone around you. Um, to truly be honest with your words and your actions, it can be scary. You don't know if your truth, like what you're going to say, you don't know always, you're uncertain as to how people might respond. Or you might be embarrassed of like what your truth is compared to others. So it takes courage to be honest. So we're also going to take a moment and we're going to just quickly learn about a few of these young Canadians who showed courage. And I encourage you, if you want to look into each of them more, I'll put their names into the bottom of this video and learn more about each of them. So the first we're going to learn about is Autumn Peltier. And so Autumn Peltier is a water rights activist. She, along with Greta Thunberg, spoke and led the March for Climate Change here in Montreal just a year ago. So at 13 years old, She spoke in front of the United Nations. She spoke in front of world leaders, talking to them about the importance of clean water and how it's the rights to everyone to have access to this, to all of nature. So, this quote from her: having access to clean drinking water is a basic human right. Every person, no matter their race, their economic status, or what part of the country they live in, we all need clean water. Everything needs clean water to survive on this planet. So Autumn Peltier showed courage by standing up, talking about what she knows is right, and she continues to do so every day. The next young Canadian is Fae Johnstone. Their quote: students need to learn about LGBTQ identities. They're never too young to do so. All kids deserve to see themselves and their loved ones reflected in their schools. All deserve to be accepted and loved for who they are. And so Faye travels around and gives talks to schools and to workplaces to help make everything more equal, to help people understand. Sometimes people are afraid of what they don't know and it makes them awkward and they may lash out and say cruel things. But Faye and many like them help people learn and understand, move towards a, a place of understanding and acceptance for all, because everyone deserves to be loved, no matter who they are. Then Travis Price, what color shirt is he wearing? Pink. Is there a day here in Canada that we talk about and that we celebrate sometimes? Pink Shirt Day, right? So Pink Shirt Day was started by Travis and some of his friends at school. So their last year of high school, there was a student that came to the first day of school wearing a pink polo shirt, and they're a new student. They're the youngest one, first day in high school. And because they were wearing a pink shirt, they were teased and made fun of and called gay and other derogatory things like all day long. How do you think that student felt? Right? Not good. So Travis and his other older students, they heard about this and they found out that that student was saying he was never coming back to school, that he was too scared to ever step foot into school again. So Travis and the other older students, they organized in one night. They had 700 out of the 1,000 students wear pink to school the next day. And so how do you think that student that wore a pink polo shirt and got teased and bullied, how do you think he felt the next day walking into school and seeing everyone wearing pink, that solidarity, right? And it took courage from Travis and his other friends to step out and to do that. But the goal here is to make a day where kids can go to school and not be bullied. So it takes courage to stand up for other people. And this is Rana Nasrazadani. And young people want greater ownership and personal control over the decisions that affect their lives and future. Rana has fought for rights for people with different abilities, that they deserve the same access to education and to workforces. And so she continues to work and to speak up and to let people know what needs to be done. And this is Tina O. For young folks who want to get involved, you just have to do it. There's so many things going against us in terms of systems and structures and bad ideologies and thoughts. Nothing will get done if we don't do it. Do it with friends. That makes it easier. So she's working with her friends to help her university and others make better choices and invest and to give money to things that will make our world a better place instead of a less healthy place. So we learned about extraordinary acts of courage, ordinary acts of courage, and from youth here in Canada who stood up and they spoke their voice and they worked to make change happen. So our final video is going to be this next video, and we're going to figure out some of those tips and tricks and ways to make that lizard brain, that animal part of our brain, and our thinking brain work together. So I'll see you next time.